This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelly Bidlin.
Long Shots golf betting podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelly Bidlin coming to you for the RBC Canadian Open. Let's go ahead and put a bow on the second to last signature event last week. And basically we could take clips from 7 different times last year and now a couple of more times this year. And I could just say, hey, guess what? Scotty Scheffler won the tournament. And I know you're going out there saying, guys, what do we do? I mean, this is why we were touting last week on the show, playing the winner without market, trying to get interested, trying to get a different way to attack these tournaments where Scotty's in it. He is by far the best golfer in the world. He is in the zone right now. And Wes, I think the scariest thing is you look, and it wasn't his even A-plus game. It was about his A- to B-plus game. And he can go out there and still win a tournament by 4 strokes, even with that, because he is so incredibly good at everything. He is very, very good at every single aspect of golf. And, he finds himself in trouble. Doesn't matter. He hits greens from places nobody else hits greens from. He scrambles like nobody else. Sure, I guess the putter could be a little bit better, but it doesn't matter when all you have to do is 2-putt to make par basically on every single hole. And here we are, Scotty Scheffler, another $4 million richer. And I said this joking with Kelly on a numbers game that I'm filling in this week on, Wes. I'm like, I'm going to know intimately Scotty's kid because, he gets more airtime than basically anybody not in the final 2 groups of the golf tournament. We're going to know when this kid loses his first tooth. We're going to see when he gets his full head of hair. When he starts walking, we're going to know for sure, all of this, because the kid gets all the airtime after Scotty wins all these damn tournaments. He's just sitting there, and we're going to know everything about this sumbitch when it's all said and done. Good on him. Scotty's made $121 million already in his career. So kid doesn't never have to work a day in his whole life. Any takeaways for you from this past week?
Yeah, 16 PGA Tour wins now, so only 4 away from being lifetime exempt. That's just a formality, I think, at this point. Yeah. But it's really, you look at the stats, and yes, he led in strokes gained approach. Yes, he led in strokes gained ball striking. Yes, he led in scrambling. But it's the fact that he makes the least amount of mistakes. I was looking at his scorecard. He had 1 double bogey, I believe, in Friday's second round, I think on the 10th hole on Friday. He just doesn't make any mistakes. And you look at some of these other guys, even the guys that were in contention, let alone my guys that did very poorly last week that I bet, you got double and triple bogeys all over the place on this card. This played very tough. 10 under par was the winner. I think it was 8 under last year. In second place, Ben Griffin, who continues to stay hot, led the first 2 rounds, 6 under par. So that tells you that the scoring, it was a very difficult course. I believe you had 11 guys in red figures out of the 70-plus player field. He just doesn't make any mistakes, and you just wait for him to make that mistake, and he never does, and that's what I think is separating him. And look, even Jack Nicklaus, when you get older, you get a little bit more unfiltered, and Jack in the post presser on Sunday night was like, how much better he is. It was almost like he was insulting. He's like, these guys just aren't in his class, but he's not wrong. And he's outclassing everybody right now, and he makes the fewest amount of mistakes, and that's what victory is going to favor long term.
Kelly, we look, I had Straka in the winner without market. Obviously, he couldn't get it done there, and don't cash any tickets this week when it comes to all of that. But, we ran into this a little bit a few years ago when Rahm won a few tournaments to start the season, right? But Rahm was sitting 9-1, 9.5-1, 10-1, 11-1. And we had people going like, why don't you just bet Rahm every time? Well, again, you can't really do it when a guy's 9-1. Well, Scotty's going off now 3-1, 3.5-1 in these tournaments. And so you can't really bet it. You just have to find a place that maybe you feel comfortable coming in tournament, or attack it in a different way, like we said, be it the winner without market, or find him in a head-to-head or a 3-ball that you like, or whatever, something along those ways, because you can't just assume he's going to win 1 out of every 3 tournaments. So it's very likely, it seems like, at this point. So Scotty's kind of mucking up our golf betting here right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, to put it plainly, no matter how great the guy is, you can't bet him every tournament. I know it's an easy thing to for just the hot take just to say about golf and golf betting right now, but you can't bet him every tournament. You'd be down a lot of money if you bet him every tournament the past 3 years. For as great as he's been, you'd be down a ton of money if you bet him outright the past few seasons. He's awesome though. I think that leaderboard, that final leaderboard, and it's something that we've kind of talked about a lot this year. I beat the drum a ton on before every major. You'll probably hear me say it a ton the next couple weeks too. It's just, look, Scheffler's awesome. We know he's awesome. You said it, Matt. He didn't even play his A+ game. He wins by 4 strokes. It's just that it's that next tier down of golfers that we expect to kind of be there in that next tier week in and week out that are just, there's just no consistency right now. I think from that next tier down, and it makes there be more value at the top of the board, in my opinion, when it comes to Scotty Scheffler, when it comes to Rory McIlroy at points this year, when it comes to Bryson DeChambeau. So I think it's something to keep in mind. The only one I'm kind of beating myself up on was I did a guest spot on Live Bet Saturday with Will Hill and Grace Remington, and it was at that point. I think it's just like you're talking about, thinking of different ways to get exposure and get involved on Scheffler. And it was, hey, I'm looking at live odds. On Saturday, I believe he was in 3rd place at that time and 4 shots back, but he's plus 210. And you're like, you know what? Like, in my opinion, that's a better number to bet into than a 3-1 pre-tournament when I know there's only 2 guys in front of him. He might be 4 shots back, but it's only 2 dudes, and I can rely on steady, reliable Scotty Scheffler to play his way through when he's going up against much more volatile players like a Ben Griffin and a Nick Taylor. And lastly, before we move on, I think some of my biggest takeaway besides Scheffler, Ben Griffin. I bet against him in a tournament matchup. I didn't expect him to repeat the success that he's had the past couple of weeks. I think it's been incredible what he's doing the past few weeks, really finding his game and put it all together. And then one of those guys that I just don't know how I don't know how you handicap is Nick Taylor, because like Nick Taylor is that guy who can play so many bad tournaments, right? And then it's just like, oh, he's on the first page of the leaderboard all weekend threatening to win, or goes out there and wins. I know we talk about all the time these guys that finish top 10, top 20 and never win. Nick Taylor's a guy who actually wins but doesn't finish top 20 all that often. So I think those would be my 2 biggest takeaways from the tournament.
Yeah, we move on here to the RBC, in which Rory McIlroy is playing. Obviously, he is going to be at the top of the odds board, sitting about 450. And then it's a pretty big drop off as the field, again, it's fine. It's just, it's the RBC Canadian. And so you go and if you're watching with us over on YouTube, you can see Corey Connors, Ludwig Oberg, Shane Lowry, Taylor Pendrith, Sam Burns, Robert McIntyre. These are all household names, but the drop-off in odds very quick. 450 to 14 to Ludwig, then 20 to Connors, 22 to Lowry, 28 to Pendrith, 28 to Burns, 28 to McIntyre, 35 on Sungjae, and then everybody else is 40 or longer in this thing. And so it is an interesting tournament where we have to decide, do we treat Rory the same way that we treat, some of these tournaments in which Scotty is in there by himself, as opposed to when he's in there with Rory as well. I'll go ahead and speak on this right now. I am not. I do not think that Rory and Scotty are in the same breath right now with what they're doing out there on the course, because if Rory doesn't bring his A+ game, his A game might be enough to win a tournament, but his B+ game is not good enough to win a tournament. And that is something that I have to take into account when there are these type of tournaments. 450 on Rory, just a little too short for me here in this one. But again, down, you got your Keith Mitchells, your Nick Taylors. You mentioned Wyndham Clark is in this thing, probably at a longer number than you would imagine, but that speaks to his current form. Ryan Fox, who's had some success, you'll find him further down the board here. So you'll see Gary Woodland, Justin Rose. So there's a lot of guys down the board here that are, again, household names, but form has them with pretty big numbers next to them. But Wes, we move to a course here in TPC Toronto that obviously we did not see last year, haven't seen in this rotation. So Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to this week?
Yeah, first time that TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley, that's I believe the name of the resort there where this is, the North Course. First time it's hosted. It has hosted events before, but on PGA Tour Canada, which is now part of PGA Tour Americas. So it has been played by a few of these guys. It's in Caledon, Ontario, which is about an hour's drive away from Toronto. Par 70, 73.89. Originally designed by Doug Carrick, but it's Ian Andrew, another Canadian-based architect that did a renovation here in 2023. He did the renovation, too, at St. George's in 2022. That was the event won by Rory. He has won the Canadian Open twice at 2 different courses. Remember, that's when all the live things started, and Rory was the, flag bearer for the PGA Tour, and it was an emotional win, and he held off Justin Thomas and Tony Finau. It was a really good event, probably one of the better tournaments of that calendar year. So Andrew, by the way, did do the redesign or renovation for this, so could be some course correlation. This used to be about 7,100 yards. Now it's at around 7,400, 73.89 on the scorecard, and it is a par 70. So you have a lot of long par fours here. I think you have 4 500-plus yard par fours and one that's right at 500. And then an interesting anomaly here, the first hole is a par 5, and so is the closing hole, the 18th. So you're going to get some times over the first 2 days when they do the split tees, front 9 and back 9, where you have somebody that's finishing up their if they start on 10 with a par 5 at the 18th and then going immediately and playing a par 5 at the first. That's obviously very rare to have 2 par 5s back to back. So when you look at it, the fairways are kind of forgiving, about 37 yards wide. There is thick rough here, so you do get punished if you miss fairways. It's about 4 inches thick. Bent grass POA in terms of the fairways, bluegrass rough, bent grass POA on the greens. About 6,500 square feet on average, so not hard greens to hit necessarily. 12 on the stimp, so about medium speed. There are only 48 bunkers on the course, but there are some in the fairways, so you do have different carries. And that's what this guy, in reading some of his quotes, Ian Andrew, the designer here, said, we want some of the carries to be 290, and we want some of them to be like 310 or 320. So he wanted to, kind of vary it up a little bit. You got a lot of long iron shots here this week, too, and we'll get to that when we get into our, stats that we use for model purposes. You're not going to have, I think, a ton of wedges here this week. This is not going to be a wedge fest, even though it's kind of maybe bombs away off the tee. You're going to have some 175, 200-yard iron shots. So if I'm going with course correlations, a little bit like St. George with the same renovation, TPC Craig Ranch, Detroit, TPC Deer Run where the John Deere is, Memorial Park being a long par 70. That, of course, is where Houston is. So that's really the correlation. You're not going to get as much correlation as with like Hamilton or Oakdale or some of these ones that have been played in this Canadian Open rotation that are a little bit more narrow in the fairways, a little bit more ball striker heavy.
Kelly, anything as you were doing your research here, again, a new course, which I know we hate because we aren't able to look at any sort of stuff from the past. Is there anything that stuck out to you?
Yeah, it's the new course handicapping it's different, so it makes it a little bit fun because it's different. But yeah, I don't love it. It's Wes, I seized on those same quotes from the from the designer, and I was like, oh, that's interesting because that was something we talked about a few weeks ago, which is kind of all the fairway bunkers being placed in the same location, and Rory talking about how I'm just going to bomb it over, and that's basically what he did all week. I went and watched some of like the overhead video, and I just don't, with how wide the fairways are and where the bunker placement is, I still think they're going to be avoidable by most of the golfers just because, okay, there's one on the right. I just got to stick to the left on this hole. I don't know, but this is where it's a new course, right? So some of this stuff you're kind of just guessing at a little bit. So that was kind of stuff that I dug into. I do think the off the tee game, though, overall is going to be important this week. I do think distance with these wide open fairways, as long as Wes called it out, it's going to be long rough. I do think that could cause some problems potentially. Who knows how hard a rough this is going to be to play out of, but almost 4 inches tall. You'd expect that's about the biggest problem these guys are going to have to overcome this week. But man, wide open fairways, distance off the tee, I think that's all going to matter this week, and then it's just going to become I think approach into pretty easy greens in the putting contest is what this probably turns into. And I think basically the only reason we're going to see not crazy low scores, just because they did turn it into a par 70, right? And it's longer par 4s and only 2 par 5s to take advantage of. So, yeah, nothing too huge for me this week. Just heavy focus off the tee, approach, and putting.
Yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and get into the stats here. For me, my model, fairly basic, off the tee, approach heavy, bogey avoidance in a tournament we think will have some decent scoring, driving distance, a little bit of total driving. Wes mentioned long iron, so did do that, like kind of 175 to 200, stuff like that. And then just as tiebreaker stuff, I put in what some of the strokes gained on longer courses, strokes gained on easy scoring conditions, kind of threw that in as well, just to kind of see if there's any guys that I was on the fence about. Maybe that could help me distinguish between all of those. Wes, anything funky in your model, or pretty kind of straightforward here?
Very straightforward. From an approach standpoint, 175 to 200, 200 plus, I think, for the long irons. I did a little bit of, just to kind of look at it, scoring, stroke gain par 4s over 500 yards, because there are 4 of them. And then the other one is like 497. So I kind of include that as 500 yards as well. Driving distance, strokes gained off the tee, did strokes gained total longer courses, just for some, I guess overarching data here. I didn't do anything like specifically with like Canadian courses, because they're so different. Because this in St. George is different than like Hamilton or Glen Abbey or some of these other ones. Did do a little bit of strokes gained around the green, because the greens aren't very complex, but you do have some of that short grass. It's different than last week at the Memorial, where you got thick shit right around the greens. This is very shaved, short grass, kind of tricky lies a little bit, but the greens are pretty easy. They're bent POA, and the mix, it's about a 50-50 mix from everything I read, so it's not one that's dominant or the other. So did a little bent POA putting. It's kind of hard to do that, because this is the first time you've gotten like an equal bent POA mix this year, so you don't really have a lot of recent data necessarily to go on. So I did a little bit of that, but I don't think the greens don't have a lot of like undulations, or they're not very complex, so you're not gonna, I think, really get all that much trouble on the green. Around the green, you could miss some and get some tricky chips and whatnot, but I don't know how this is going to play, because they had this event in the fall on PGA Tour Americas, and it was like 5 or 6 under, I think, was the winner, but it was in September. Yeah. But the last time they had this, an event that I looked at was called the Osprey Valley Open in 2019 on PGA Tour Canada, which was won by Paul Barjon. Taylor Pendrith, more on him later, was the runner-up, and the winning score was 25 under par. So your guess is as good as mine what the score is going to be here. I got to think mid-high teens, ballpark at 17 under seems right to me. But look, they could blitz it if they can overpower it.
Yeah, you guys pretty much hit on everything that I had baked in. I glad you brought it up, Wes. I think with a little bit more of the unknowns, I did factor in a little bit of around the green play and scrambling, just for hey, maybe this is a little tougher once we get up there than I'm thinking it's going to be. But yeah, I think the shaved runoffs and everything that caught my eye as well, so I wanted to factor that in a bit. And then I just used basic strokes gained putting too. You talking about the greens mix? I just used basic strokes gained putting. I factored that in a little bit in my model.
One thing I did want to bring up too is that they've had a wet spring up there, so this could play a little bit softer. And they're supposed to get rain. I think a little, like a brief shower on Thursday, and then a little rain on Saturday. The wind doesn't look like much, really, but it's going to be mostly overcast too, from what I looked at with the official AccuWeather forecast this week. But that official forecast can obviously change, but it doesn't look like all that windy. And then there you put it up there, maybe a little bit more on Sunday, but for the first couple rounds, pretty easy, I would think. But yeah, it has been a little wet, so that's why I thought maybe off the tee was going to be a little bit more important. So if you look at stuff like carry distance, or if you look at stuff like distance from the edge of the fairway, which kind of like new off the tee statistics, as opposed to like SGOTT or good drives gain, what have you. But I think that I don't think the weather should cause too much problems. It just might make it play a little bit softer, because they've had a wet spring up there in Ontario.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of rain Thursday, maybe a little bit of rain Saturday. I don't know about you guys. I usually only check this stuff for Thursday, Friday, just to make sure there's not a wave advantage or anything like that. But yeah, I didn't really check Saturday or Sunday. You're right, Wes. This could be a little gusty on Sunday morning, it looks like.
Yeah, because what I looked at yesterday, it didn't seem like much, and now I'm looking at this. It's like, okay, 18 miles an hour in the middle of the round on Sunday. Yeah, could matter.
That's not nothing.
Yeah, it is. An interesting tournament for me. Again, I'm so data oriented. We get to these new courses and just stuff where I don't know how it's going to play at all when they're kind of adjusting how the course is going to look, and I don't know. It doesn't suit me typically, which is why I think I took the strategy that I did this week as far as the card goes, and so. Might as well go ahead and transition to that. A reminder, VSiN.com. You can go over there and get Wes's full write-up of everything. Any picks that get added ends up on the picks page as well. So go in if you're not a VSiN Pro subscriber yet. First month is like $9 if you just want to dip your toe in. You can also do 14 months for $199 that we're running right now. But Kelly Bidlin, you put the stuff in the model, it spit some stuff out, you did some research, and you ended up with what in the account?
Yeah, and before I move to that, I will just say, if you listen or watch this podcast weekly, thank you. We appreciate it. Leave us reviews, thumbs up, whatever you can do to help support it. We appreciate a reminder that all of our shows on VSiN are also in podcast form, in case you're ever looking for that stuff. So something we don't bring up enough, trying to work in more often. All right, as far as bets for me, I have 2 whole outright bets. I like my top 10s and top 20s a little bit better, but I didn't really trust these guys to go out and win. Matt, you brought up Rory. I'm betting him. I really had no plans on betting Rory McIlroy this week. I really thought I would be looking further down the board. It just goes back to, I think, more of what I was talking about before. I'm running through all my numbers. And you're building up models and everything, and it's okay. There's Rory at the top, and then clearly I should see Ludwig and Corey Connors and Shane Lowry and all these guys right down the row in the top 10. Nope. We got to keep searching for them, and it's just you're getting other names that are popping up there, and these mid-range guys have just. I don't really have much interest in betting them right now. So Rory was so dominant in everything that I ran, and then you just kind of, yes, we're dealing with a new course, but you take a step back, and I'm like, okay, what's going to be important here? Bomb it off the tee. We're going to need long iron play, most likely, and he's going to have to go up and make some putts. Like, it really sounds like this course was made for Rory McIlroy. So it's 5-1. It's short, but I'm going to bet Rory this week in the outright market, and then played him in the top 5 as well to cover that. And then the only other outright that I added, old Luke Clanton making his first appearance as a professional. So I am on Luke this week, 40-1. We've tried to pick our spots of when we're going to find the Luke Clanton week. Maybe it's this, judging by the reaction from my two co-hosts. I'm guessing this might be a pod play. But yeah, Clanton, I think this course should suit well for him. He's only played 5 times this year. If you've kind of been, off and on checking where some of these guys that are up and comers are at in their career, he's only played 5 times on the tour. Mixed results. He's got 2 top 18 finishes. He's got 2 missed cuts. But I don't know about you guys. He was a guy that I was attracted to this week, and I'm judging by your reactions, I'm going to guess you were too.
Well, he's making his debut this week, pro debut. A couple other guys too. Gordon Sargent, who is the 2022 NCAA champion, who's played a couple majors as an amateur, making his debut. David Ford, also from University of North Carolina. These guys were all at that PGA Tour U that Ludwig got on the tour a couple years ago through. So he's making his debut this week. So Clanton, obviously the more proven of those 3, because he did have 2 runner-ups last year. So, a lot of guys making their debuts this week on the PGA Tour as official professionals.
You read me correctly, Kelly. It's almost as if you were a poker player back in the day. But yes, if you're watching on YouTube, you probably saw my shit-eating grin. I have Clanton on the card this week, 43-1. I ran 3 different models, 2 different sites. Clanton never lower than 8th, as high as 5th. Just fits kind of everything here. And if you go in I think he probably could have gotten up to 3rd, maybe, if I hadn't put bogey avoidance as high as I did. He's like 78th in this field in the baseline from bogey avoidance. And if I didn't wait, because I think I put 15% on bogey avoidance. If I had not done that, he might have been 3rd. He could have been he might have been as high as that. in the model for me. So yeah, I did land on Clanton this week. So good on you for picking that up.
I like it. And then just to finish out, some top 10s and top 20s for me. This is where I sunk way more of my money into this week. But Corey Connors, I'm going right back to it. It's out to like minus 125 now in the top 20. I'm playing him, though he screwed me last week, backing up out of there on Sunday. I think he missed it by a stroke getting that top 20 home. But, man, he's still – you just look back on what he's done overall the past couple months. He's cashed – if you're betting top 20s, he's cashed 7 in the last 9 tournaments. I'm not really playing huge Canada home field advantage or anything like that. This is just where recent form's at with Corey Connors and kind of trust where it's at. And then the two guys, I played top 10s and top 20s on both of these guys. Stop me if you've heard me say this before in this pod, but Keith Mitchell rated out very highly for me, and I'm going to Keith. Top 10, top 20. I didn't play him in the outright market, but man, he was most consistent, second highest rated golfer behind Rory for me on everything that I ran this week. I mean, look, last 24 rounds, he's top 25 in all the ball striking metrics. We know that. The little bit of the shockers, if you go and pull up what he's done recently, he's gained in putting in 6 straight events. Like, that's pretty crazy. First in par 4 scoring, all these par 4s this week. Love Keith Mitchell. I just can't get behind him for an outright play. And look, past 2 results, T36 last week. He missed the cut at the PGA. But then before that, it was 5 straight top 20 finishes. So a little bit unknown of what we're getting form-wise with Keith Mitchell, but like him in the top 10, top 20 market. And then a guy that I don't bet, I feel like, as often as you two do, but maybe I'm on my own with him this week, Harry Hall. Going to play him top 10, top 20. I think there are some concerns with his game, but just kind of basic breakdown of where I think how the course plays. He's got enough distance off the tee. Approach game's in a good place right now, and the putter's always great. So if that's all that's going to be asked of him, I think he's a good play this week. Accuracy off the tee is a little bit of concern. Some of the scrambling and around the green's not great right now. But if we're just talking kind of straight distance off the tee, approach and putting, I think he's a good play. So I played a top 10 and a top 20 on Harry Hall as well. And that is my entire card.
Look at you. Why did Harry Hall not end up on? I got to figure out why he didn't end up on my card.
Accuracy reasons.
First in this field in 175 to 200.
Long irons was not there. That's true.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of scared me off a tad. 73rd in total driving. So I think that's what scared me off him. That being said, because typically if I see a dude like, I mean, he's 10th overall in one of my, he's 10th. So like there's a reason as to why it didn't happen. And I think that's what scared me off a little bit on him. But again, just to back up the play there, he was 10th in, a version of the model for me there with that. Wes, how did things end up for you?
It is not going to be a pod play on Clanton for an outright. I am going to play him in the top 20, though. I think he could play very well. He did not make it through U.S. Open final qualifying on Monday yesterday, so he's going to be fully concentrated on this. Obviously, want to show out in your debut, but where I started with Sam Burns at 28-1, who's kind of finding his game a little bit. 4 top 20s last 5 starts, T12 last week at the Memorial. Number 1 in putting on the PGA Tour. Now, this is not Bermuda Burns week. Maybe it's a Bentgrass Burns week, though, because he putts pretty solidly everywhere. He was 4th in this event in 2022 that I mentioned at St. George's, which is kind of a similar course, I guess, to TPC Toronto, same redesigner I mentioned earlier. So could play very well here. And then also, look, his best buddy, Scotty Scheffler, is like setting the world on fire right now. So certainly that's got to motivate you a little bit when your mate is like kicking ass and taking names. And it's like, well, he's not here this week, so I don't have to lose to him. So maybe the pressure's off. And could see Sam Burns playing well, so I went there 28-1. Also, same price, Taylor Pendrith, which I usually don't like to play a lot of Canadians in this event at their home open because we've only had one since 1954 win, and that was Nick Taylor when he hit that eagle putt in a playoff over Tommy Fleetwood. One time a Canadian has won the Canadian Open since 1954. But I mentioned Pendrith. He was runner-up on this course on PGA Tour Canada before, 5th at the PGA, 12th at the Memorial. He was actually 2nd last week in strokes gained approach and strokes gained ball striking behind, you guessed it. So that tells you he's at least up there in those. Go ahead.
And Wes, as Kelly has it on the screen right here, the thing I like about these dudes that are like a little bit longer from a whatever, like you can see, some weeks he sucks at putting, but some weeks he spikes. So if you can find a spike week in putting and get that type of approach game, he's going to be up there. And so I actually kind of like these dudes when we're getting a little bit of a bigger number where, okay, sure, some weeks he might lose 2.5, but he might gain 2.5 as well. He might gain 5 like he did at the Houston Open or something. So I like the dudes that do spike at least from time to time.
Seems to be better on bent grass too, as that data will indicate. So Taylor Pendrith, 28-1. Tjorborn Olesen at 50-1. 2 top 7s in his last 6 starts at the Valero and Myrtle Beach. And why I mentioned the Valero, it's TPC San Antonio. I saw somebody out there in social media kind of does good profiles of courses. I think it's Eric Patterson. I forget the X handle. You can look it up. But he says this course is kind of like TPC San Antonio with rough. Well, the Valero is held at TPC San Antonio, and Olsen was 5th in that event. He also just got a U.S. Open qualifying spot. Of course, yesterday, longest day in golf where they have the 36 holes to make the U.S. Open for final qualifying. He got one of the spots in nearby York, Ontario. I looked overall. 11th in strokes gained tee to green, like not in this field, but overall on the PGA Tour. 13th in strokes gained total. So it's like this guy's been playing some sneaky good golf, and maybe in a little bit downfield. Olesen, I think, could play very well here. Olesen at 50-1.
What was Wes? What were those? Were those season long stats?
Yes. Yeah. That was 2025
that's
for the entire season, which I thought, wow, that's high. Because it's never seemed like he's been right there to win. But he's been pretty consistent. So Olesen at 50-1, Kurt Kitayama at 60-1, 6th on the tour for distance, 15th off the tee, 3rd on approaches over 200 yards. Now, he's not the most accurate guy, so, you could always get kind of got by that, but good track record, actually, on these TPC courses. 5th at Craig Ranch earlier this year at the CJ Cup, which, of course, you guessed it, who won that. That was Scotty Scheffler by like 1 million, but played very well to finish top 5. Last year, a few top 10s. TPC Twin Cities for the 3M, TPC Scottsdale and Phoenix, TPC Summerlin for the Shriners in Las Vegas. So he tends to play very well on those TPC courses. Really long hitter of the golf ball. Just gotta keep it out of that thick stuff. Hopefully he does. Kitayama 60-1. Matty Schmid 80-1. He was one of the first I actually clicked here, and I usually don't like to click a guy off kind of what was seemingly an outlier good performance where he was runner-up to Ben Griffin at Colonial. And that course, by the way, a lot more narrow, a lot more ball striker heavy than it is driver heavy, which I think is right in Matty Schmid's wheelhouse. And he's got 4 top 10s, including that Colonial event on the PGA Tour this year. Now, 3 of them were at the alternate events, Puerto Rico, Myrtle Beach, Corrales, Punta Cana, but this is a guy that hits it big off the tee, 15th in driving distance. I think he'll like this course a lot better, where it's a little bit more wide open. The fairways are pretty gettable. So Matty Schmid, 80-1, and then EVR, Eric Von Royen, who I found at 100-1 this morning. He was a distant second at the CJ Cup to Scotty Scheffler, but TPC Craig Ranch, I think, has some correlation here to TPC Toronto. And then also Von Royen's got a little bit of momentum, because if you were following that U.S. Open qualifying yesterday, he was at Columbus, which was, obviously where the Memorial was, where you had probably the most higher-end pros in that field trying to get in spots for the U.S. Open. And he dusted him. He was 13 under through 2 rounds yesterday. I think Bud Cauley was the second guy, and he was 7 under. That was the spot, of course, Cameron Young got the final spot in a playoff over Fowler and Max Homa and a couple others, but played very, very well. So I thought maybe EVR made a little bit of sense here at 100-1. A couple I didn't play that I reserved the right to add if I'm looking for big hitters. Nicholas Norgard, who you can get it around, I think, like 70, 75 to 1-ish. Really big hitting Dane, who's won a couple times on the DP World Tour, and also Ryo Hisatsune. Those were guys that like kind of just missed for me, but I went a little bit bomber heavy this week when I was looking at potential outrights, as evidenced by Kitayama and Matty Schmid and those type of guys. So Alejandro Tosti, I'm guessing will be on some cards this week because he's up there for driving distance, as are the Højgaards, as is like Chris Gotterup. Kelly mentioned Keith Mitchell. So I expect those guys are going to get play this week too.
I will say, Matt, that everybody that Wes bet, while I did not match with any of them, every single guy that he just listed off was top 19 in my last 24 bottle.
Well, so I just played a bunch of those guys in different forms. I don't trust any of them to actually win the tournament, but I think that if we're sitting here talking about this on Friday morning and Taylor Pendrith or Keith Mitchell or EVR is your first round leader, then I think we would all be like, yep, that makes a ton of sense. And so I just played all three of them in first round leader. So that is how I played those three guys. Just hadn't seen any of these guys put 4 rounds together. So that's just the reason I'm going to go that direction with them. And then Olesen was actually the first one off for me, Wes, of the outright. He was very close to making the card. I ended up playing a top 20 on him as opposed to the outright with him. But, I mean, this guy was top 10 in every version of every model that I ran. Really, the only thing kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Harry Hall, Kelly, just the long irons leave a little bit to be desired for Olesen. But outside of that, really does have a lot of green, a lot of stuff that we're looking at here whenever we're playing this. So I ended up with the top 20 on him. So Pendrith, Mitchell, EVR in the first round leader market, Olesen in the top 20 market. Talked about Luke Clanton already. Found him here in town. I know you guys can't get it at 43-1. You can get 40-1. I'd still play it at that number there. Second guy on my card. I just went towards the middle of the board here and just hope that one of these dudes can go and tear up a course that might be gettable. Again, we don't really know, but might be gettable.
Yeah.
We've seen, that's one thing we say about this all the time, right? The thing that really separates is the course. And so all these dudes can get easier courses. And if it does play easier, that's why I went the direction I did. Like I said, could be the wrong decision. We'll see. So Clanton, then I played Alex Smalley, 67-1. You can find him out there, I think like 60-1 or something in the market.
God, do something for us this year, Alex Smalley. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, just again, he's green across the board, right? He's inside the top 12 in every single one of the versions of the model that I ran. Yeah. And then you go and it's like, he doesn't do anything exceptional, but he does everything okay that I kind of put in here. The thing that really stuck out to me, 5th overall in total driving. If we are focusing, or I did focus on that a little bit heavier, that's obviously good for me. Inside the top 20 on strokes gained on easy courses, so maybe this will play to his skill set a little bit better. Strokes gained on par 4 over the last 32 rounds, which is 8 or 9 tournaments for these guys, 10 if you've been cut a couple of different times. He's 7th overall in the field. So anyway, Smalley ends up getting a play for me.
8 top 28 finishes on the season for Alex Smalley and 5 missed cuts.
Yep.
It's been a roller coaster.
So it's exactly what you want in a 67-1.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you want in a 67-1, right? Like, get there on Sunday and then let me figure out a way to monetize you, at 67-1.
Oh, I missed the top 20. I missed the Sony Open. Sorry, Alex Smalley.
Wes mentioned Chris Gotterup. Chris Gotterup got a play for me. Here in town at Circuits, 80-1. I don't know if I would have played him. So rest of country, it's a big outlier price, right? So Gotterup rest of country is like 60, I think. 65-ish, 60, 65. So I don't know if he'd have got to play at 65, but at 80 here in town, it was too much for me to pass up on Gotterup.
Price kept me off Pendrith the same way. Pendrith was my last leaf off. I was kind of going to bet him before even looking at the odds.
He's gonna be popular this week because I think he opened in the mid 30s, got hit immediately by the guys that really get out there early on Monday morning.
But Goddard was as high as 4th for me in models.
Yeah, oh yeah, he was up there on mine too.
10th off the tee. 19th strokes gained par 4, 16th bogey avoidance, 8th in driving distance, 3rd off the tee last 12. So his driver's really doing well right now. He's figuring out a way to get it done off the tee. And then you go, and again, it's just kind of like 15. He's does pretty well on easy courses. It's just stuff like that, right? I mean, these are things that I'm looking for with these dudes. And so could he spike at a ridiculously high number? Let's hope so. But I mean, look at that. I mean, it's not terrible, right? Not terrible results there.
Oh, not at all.
Some top 20s, yeah.
It's just the he was one I dug into a bit. It's just the 3 events where I don't have shot link data. Where I'm like, I don't know what these results tell me or not. One was with a partner.
Yeah, and the last one for me, and I had to do the research, but again, just going by what the model told me here, Johnny Kiefer, a 24-year-old. He is majority on the Korn Ferry Tour, but has done very well on the Korn Ferry Tour. He won in April. He got second in May, T12 at a tournament at a tournament last week. So I mean, this is a dude that has had some success over there. Actually, a T4, a T6, a T2. There's all kind of really good season so far for Johnny Kiefer over there on the Korn Ferry Tour, getting to come over and play on the PGA Tour this week. Could he spike? Who knows? I don't have any idea. But he just modeled very well for me. And after I dug in, I can see that there is upside, right, for this dude. He has won tournaments. He's been several, few different top fives in there, some top tens, things like that. So just a dart throw more than anything else there. But Johnny Kiefer rounds out my.
He's played a lot up in Canada too, because he was on PGA Tour Americas last year, because they used to have PGA Tour Canada and PGA Tour Latino America. They merged those, I believe, in 2024. So he's a guy that's been red hot. I was just looking at his form here. RA1, probably going to be one of those guys that are in that top 25 at the end of the year on the KFT that are going to get their PGA Tour cards for next year.
Yeah, again, like averages about 311 off the tee. I mean, there's just there's stuff going for him that might get him there. And again, it's a super long number, so if he can just be in the mix come Sunday, then we can monetize that ticket.
Yeah, one of the hot young up and coming players, right? And shout out to Rick Gaiman. We're always using his site to show you guys stats and finishes. And it looks like he went the extra mile to find the profile picture for Johnny Kiefer here to add onto the site, not the official PGA Tour headshot.
The Baylor Bears headshot right there.
Yeah, I think that's what we got working here.
Yeah, so that's the whole card for me this week. So just 4 outrights: Clanton, Smalley, Kiefer, and Goddard, Pendrith, and Killer Keith and EVR in the first round leader market, and then Olesen there in the top 20 market, and that's going to be it for me this week. Again, I am hoping it plays a little bit easier, and if it does play a little bit easier, I think that opens the field up to a whole bunch more people. And Kelly, if it plays a little bit harder, then I think your card with Rory is going to be playing good. So, I think that there's a couple different ways to attack this thing, and you went one way, I went the other way, and we'll find out if there was a right way or a wrong way, or if it's somewhere in between.
Who is the golfer you guys have the least interest in betting this week?
Ludwig.
Yeah.
Easy. At that number, he had one good round at the Memorial, and it's like 14-1. Dude, if I miss on Ludwig, fine. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care at all.
Isn't it crazy? I still think long term he's going to be great, but it is crazy that was just that quick of a snap call reaction by all three of us. That I set it up because that's who I was going to immediately say, and you guys both just went immediately to Oberyn.
And then for me, even though they profile very well, the Højgaards, I cannot figure out the Højgaards. When I think one is going to play well, it's the other one that plays great. Mm-hmm. So I figured them out when they were on the DP World Tour, but on the PGA Tour, I have yet to figure them out.
Now, I don't mean to laugh at anybody's betting failures this year, but it's been quite comical to listen to our great friend Dave Ross every week, who seemingly bets one of the Højgaards. And like you're talking about, Wes, every day I walk in Friday to do a show, he's yelling about how he bet the wrong Højgaard that week.
Kelly, what I will say about Ludwig, though, if we're just talking about strategy, in one and done,
good call.
He's probably already been used a bunch. And so if you played him this week, you're probably going to be in the minority of people using him. So you're kind of actually could be zigging where people are zagging. I'm guessing his use percentage is pretty high in there in most of the different one and done pools. And so he might only be 20-25% available in your pool. And I understand that this isn't a huge first place prize or something, but look, if you add $1 million to your one and done, you're still adding $1 million to your one and done, any way that you go about it. And so, I have one where he's available, and I might use him in one of the ones where I do have him, strictly because I am guessing he's not going to be able to be used by very many people. And so, I don't think I'm going to play him in any of the other. I mean, hell, we've only got 2 majors and 1 signature event left. I mean, like, I don't think I'm going to play him in any of those anyway, so.
Yeah.
Why not?
There's probably a good note for DFS too, right, Matt? I mean, this is zag where everybody's zigging, right? Like, nobody's going to have any interest in Ludwig this week.
Yeah, I mean, at the price that he's at. I mean, let me see where he is at over on.
And Matt, it's a great call, one and done. I have no idea what I'm going to do with one and done yet. I hadn't really thought that far, but I've got to start strategizing a little bit, man. The one thing that Scheffler win did give me, that's 3 wins I have now, one and done victories. So. I'm climbing up that leaderboard a little bit.
I feel like if you still have Scotty available, you're probably using him next week.
I decided to use him last week, which was a little bit of a, you got to figure out when you're going to use that big gun. But I'm like, okay, elevated event, weaker field. I think I'd rather use him then than in a major.
You used him at the perfect time.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I wish I'd have held the bullet back because that was the perfect time.
Because if you still have Rory, which I personally don't, but
I know.
Do you use Rory here or do you wait till Portrush if you're not going to use him at the U.S. Open and you're going to use Scotty, assuming you have him available? I feel like a lot of people that haven't used Rory, and probably a lot have, like for the Masters and an earlier event, they're waiting for Portrush to certainly use him.
Yeah, I probably would too. I think I'm burning one of the bums this week. I think it's going to be like Keith Mitchell or Luke Clanton or something.
I feel like that's the way to go. Or maybe a Pendrith or a Nick Taylor or somebody like that, where because you're using somebody like really high up there next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a DFS perspective, Kelly, you did so Rory is 11-9, and then Ludwig's 10-5, and then Corey Connors is 10-1. So you're probably having people just find the extra $1,400 to get to Rory and then finding other people further down the board as opposed to playing Ludwig. So you then would have to just fade Rory and hope that Rory doesn't do anything in this tournament, but I mean, that's probably going to be the strategy for people. And if they're saving money, then they'll probably just go down to Connors at 10-1.
Yeah.
Considering Connors has been so incredibly consistent this year. So, yeah, good thought there on that as well. A reminder, guys, like we said, Wes's article over at VSiN.com, all of our picks over on the VSiN.com/picks page. Go in, VSiN Pro subscription, as low as $9.99 for the first month if you want to do that, or you can go ahead and just take the full plunge. We're giving you $199 for 14 months over there as well. So that includes every single thing that we do, not just the golf stuff, of course. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all the horse racing stuff, everything is included in that price as well. For Kelly, for Wes, I am Matt. Good luck on all your RBC bets.
Go Pacers.